Sekai.
Voice.
Sekai.
Voice. You could sue anybody for anything, but whether you're going to be successful at it, that's the real question.
Trend towards, the way people act as a collective, but at the end of the day, like the people individually are the way they are.
Josh.
My name's Samantha. Orange County, Huntington Beach area.
Engineer.
I'm a lawyer.
Water resources. So stormwater and water treatment, like the roadways and railroads.
I do personal injury law, so a lot of car accidents, dog bites, and slips and falls. Yeah, people get hurt, and we pursue essentially insurance companies. We love it. It's beautiful. There's a lot of right now we're staying in Shibuya, and a lot of nightlife, a lot of great food, and the culture's amazing. Japanese people are very respectful and nice, and it's we really love it.
No, it's been a great experience. Easy to get around using the trains, and it's great food. Like I said, we love sushi, the oysters, uni, all that good stuff, and Shibuya, Shinjuku. We saw Mount Fuji, so everywhere we go, it has a different.
There's been a lot of great ones, but we were just talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
But I really like the street cart racing in Shibuya.
Yeah.
So we kind of dressed up and just kind of rode carts around in Shibuya. So that was fun. Oh my God. Who is
Logan Paul? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, of him.
He's not, but he has a very bad reputation in the States. We don't like him. He's very controversial. He's an idiot. He's dumb. Best experience, what would you say?
No, Fuji. Oh, Fuji was very
beautiful.
captivating, beautiful to go out and see and just marvel in its size. Out there, it's just a different element. You get away from the city. I wouldn't say terrible, but we wish things opened a little bit earlier.
Oh yeah.
Like we'll get up at 7 a.m. Sometimes places we want to go is not till 10 or 11, so we have to. We'll go check out a temple, a shrine, and all that. Things like, fill in some time in here.
Oh yeah, very minor. Nothing.
Very minor.
Yeah, and even then, it's. I really do appreciate that things do open up later because it kind of gives people the opportunity to just start their morning and start their day and not have to rush so much. So even though it's something that we're not used to, it's still something that we appreciate. There's a lot to it that I'm hearing a lot on different sides. A lot of controversies towards the Hawaii fires. It's terrible what has happened. There has been a lot of complaints and speculation as to whether aid was given in a timely manner to them. And then on the other side, I hear that it was very difficult to get aid to the Hawaiians as well. I really don't know, but what I do know is that it's absolutely terrible what's happened. A lot of people's lives were lost, and it's horrible, and my heart goes out to them.
It's always when something like that happens, you always wish more was done, right? And you always feel like more effort could have been put into it, but it's so hard to measure all the different parameters. And I'm not sure about the water supply as far as that's concerned. I'd have to look into it more. But I do know that, reading some of the articles, some of it does seem a little bit unusual. That feeds into the conspiracy theory, but it's really tough to put yourself into the shoes of those who have to make all those decisions and try to send out resources. But like I said, you always feel like more could be done.
Yeah, I
haven't read too much into it just because we've been on the go, but
what is happening, just violence against people in general, regardless of religion, ethnicity, any of that, it's terrible what's happening. It's one of those things where I guess a lot's not needed to look into it because it's just so in our face with how much violence is happening. and it's horrible.
I mean, that's been an ongoing feud back and forth for a long time as far as those, the religion's concerned over there, and it's disappointing and unfortunate that it's come to that.
Yeah, it's true. There is if I remember it correctly, a McDonald's case that happened many years ago where this one lady, I guess, was getting handed a hot coffee, and it was too hot, and she spilled it on herself, and it gave, like, I think, third-degree burns all over her legs, or second-degree burns. And yeah, she successfully sued McDonald's and won a settlement. Yeah, I mean, so in America, you could sue anybody for anything. But whether you're going to be successful at it, that's the real question. You could spend money to bring any type of legal action. But in a situation like that where a man just smiles at a woman and she gets offended by it, whether the intention is, whether the intention is known or not, I don't really see that happening, someone being successful suing another person, unless there's some type of intentional act behind it that was meant to be offensive or hurtful or harmful. But yeah, most likely not. But it is possible. No, I have not yet. I've been licensed for about 3 years, so haven't had a silly case like that. But and even just as a person, as a citizen, I haven't come across anything like that. So luckily, it's not too prevalent. But
So I'm Jack, and this is my wife, Nina.
So I work as a lawyer in Tokyo. I work at one of the big Japanese law firms.
So most recently, I worked in luxury retail, so for expensive watches and that kind of thing. But at the moment, I'm a student.
So we are living here for at least the next 2 to 3 years.
I think, very much so between Australia and Japan. But I think they complement each other quite well because I think Australia is very easygoing, has the lifestyle and that kind of a thing. But I think Japan has more of that history and culture and this kind of thing. So I think they complement each other quite well in that kind of aspect. So I think that's why there's a lot of Australians who come to Japan.
I think in a work context, I found it quite different. Even just communication styles. In a corporate setting, Australians, I think, are a little bit more similar to English people or American people, whereas I think it's been a bit different adjusting to the way that Japanese people communicate at work. I think it's, especially in the West, at least in my space in corporate law, people are quite direct, whereas I think in Japan, people aren't as blunt. So I think it's just a bit of a different sort of communication style. And I've noticed between my colleagues that come from different countries interacting with our Japanese colleagues, there sometimes can be a bit of miscommunication. I don't think there's any particular rules. Just kind of go with the flow. It is interesting though, a lot of the Japanese people who speak English in my company, a lot of them spent time studying or working overseas, so they have experience talking to people from different backgrounds and different nationalities.
Nothing really, strange per se. People are definitely a lot more conservative, and like you get a better, once you're here, you get a better understanding of the social pressure aspect, because, as an example, in Australia, people smoking, you throw it out on the street. Or there's some bins, but you can put it out. But most people don't really care. But here, I remember we came to a ward where we had, there wasn't really any smoking areas. And so I couldn't find anywhere to smoke. And you feel like normally you just go into a certain area and just light up a cigarette and it's all okay. But in that area, I felt like no one else was. So I couldn't. So it was just interesting because you get a better idea of the sense of collective responsibility, if that makes sense. Kind of like, no one else is, so why should I? Why should I throw this out? So Yeah, I think you get a better idea of that kind of conformity and doing it for the bigger picture kind of thing.
I think they have a really nice community feel. So we're currently living in Hong and it has this kind of nice atmosphere of, it's sort of related to that, but like everything's amazingly clean here. Like everyone has this sense of responsibility for the place they live. And I just don't think that that's something that really is very strong, especially in Australia. People kind of have more of a connection, I think, to taking care of like the space that they're in and their awareness of themselves. Whereas I think maybe people in Australia don't really care. I get in that I think Australians are very laid back. Like they're very kind of nothing's a problem. Like it's all fine. Like nothing's too big a problem. But I also think that I guess it's just different.
Yeah, it's good and bad because I mean I think there's you hear a lot of the stories about Japanese people feeling pressure and the salarymen and this kind of thing. The laid back lifestyle means that you don't feel an obligation to your career is your absolute everything in life, and being the best at that thing isn't the absolute purpose of your life. But at the same time, people can also be a bit more like the way you mentioned, a little bit more carefree in the negative sense. Like the cigarette thing and that kind of a thing. Whereas in Japan, it's the opposite, obviously.
I think as well online, because so many people come to Japan, there's a lot of different stereotypes that people talk about when they talk about Japanese people. And I think I was maybe a bit worried that maybe Japanese people were a bit older and maybe not as willing to make friends with foreigners and that sort of thing. But I found since I came here, it's not really true. Like it's not very true at all. Like that, I think there are people who are willing to be friendly and wanting to meet people everywhere, and there are people who don't. So I think it's just
people are people, and there's like a trend towards the way people act as a collective. But at the end of the day, like the people individually are the way they are. So there's not a huge difference. I think we had a bigger idea of there being a bigger difference between people in Australia and Japan. But I think in terms of maybe morals and beliefs, maybe when push comes to shove, but generally in daily life, people are the same.